Welcome to Expert Profiles Atlanta, where Atlanta's influencers and innovators share strategies for overcoming obstacles and achieving success in business and life. Here's your host, best-selling author and Atlanta influencer, Neil Howe.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today my special guest is Joy Bridges. Joy is the owner of Harmony Accounting and Bookkeeping Services, and she helps small and mid-sized businesses with their bookkeeping needs using QuickBooks Online, from getting the books set up to providing one-time cleanups to managing their monthly bookkeeping. She's a certified QuickBooks ProAdvisor and a Kennesaw State University graduate who obtained her MBA from Washington University in St. Louis. She's got over 13 years of accounting and bookkeeping experience, and she and her team at Harmony Accounting and Bookkeeping Services are ridiculously thorough, self-proclaimed bookkeeping nerds, making life easier for small and mid-sized business owners across the country with their virtual high-quality professional bookkeeping services. Joy Bridges, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, Neil.
Well, I was just at Kennesaw State University yesterday. My daughter just graduated, so it's a great school. How did you enjoy going there?
Oh, I loved it. When I was there, the school was still on a growth move, and I think right now it's definitely grown from being just maybe a commuter school to now just, it's just like Georgia State and Tech and
it is. It's a great school now, got a great reputation, and It's certainly growing.
Love it.
A whole heck of a lot. Well, tell me a little bit more about yourself, Joy, and your background, but ultimately what kind of clients you help.
Sure. So I've been working in the corporate large company accounting field for a while, and I had started to notice that I loved what I did, and I figured that I could be a lot more effective providing my services for small and medium businesses that had a desperate need for clean accounting, for clean books. So I have a thorough passion for what I do, and my team and I, we absolutely love and are highly skilled at using QuickBooks Online. That is our program of choice. So we provide virtual bookkeeping services for not just Atlanta area clients, but also for clients all across the country.
Excellent. And that's a great position to be in, is to be able to, provide not only in your hometown, but everybody else in the country that is able to find out about you. Now, talk to me about the difference between bookkeeping and accounting.
Sure. So at times, the two terms are used interchangeably. So it will always depend on the industry, the size of the company, and then just sometimes a business's personal preference. But I would say that bookkeeping is more so making sure that you're covering the day-to-day transactions, right? So you're paying the bills, you're sending out invoices to the customers, you're reconciling the bank statement at the end of the month. Any cash that comes in, any cash that goes out, you're recording it and you're aware of it. And I think accounting is more of a high level type of bookkeeping, I guess, so where you're more knowledgeable of accounting terms. Maybe you can make suggestions to the business owner, such as, hey, I think if we use a different depreciation method, we'll be looking better at tax time. So it's definitely, like I said, the two can be the same, but what sets the two apart is definitely a higher level of accounting knowledge when it comes to being an accountant versus a bookkeeper. And that's what I like about our company, is that we do bookkeeping. We're great at the day-to-day. We're great at getting the transactions in the books and making sure that the numbers are right, but we're accountants. We're degreed. We know what we're doing, so we can actually talk accounting and help business owners with their financial statements.
Right. So what kind of problems do these small and mid-sized businesses that you help have? What are their main issues?
Yeah, well, usually it's the tax issue, right? We're in May, so this is a much calmer time of the year. Mm-hmm. But, a month or so back, everyone is trying to file their taxes, but their books, maybe they're a mess, or maybe they thought their books were ready and they handed them over to the CPA, and the CPA said, hey, I cannot do anything with this, and they pushed the books back, so to speak. So lots of business owners want to file taxes, but their books aren't clean. You have other business owners that have QuickBooks Online, and they took a stab at trying to maintain it, but they need to run their business. They don't really have time to stay on top of it. They haven't reconciled a bank statement in months, if not years. So we are so great at making sure that we can get the books not only cleaned up, but maintain them going forward so that business owners can focus on what they do best. They can, run the business. Let us take care of the technical stuff that they may not be quite as adept at.
And why is it important to, I know this is kind of a silly question, but why is it important to keep your books clean? What other uses does that have for the business?
Yeah, no, that's not a silly question. So business owners, they need loans. They need funding. You can't really go to a creditor and say, I need a loan without having some financial statements to back up why that creditor should fund your operations. So having clean books is very important just for that day that you need to apply for a loan, and you want to make sure that your financials are complete. You don't really want there to be a lot of pushback from the banker. You want to make sure that you can explain any line item. You want to be able to justify why your numbers are the way they are. And if the numbers are wrong, then you will not be able to answer questions. You won't have a complete picture there.
And it helps you to make business decisions there as well when you know exactly what your numbers are and different profit and loss that you're making.
Absolutely. I really enjoy doing job costing because that's exactly the purpose, right? You want to make sure that you're aware of how well a particular a line that you have at your business or a service that you're providing, you want to be able to compare it to maybe another service to say, okay, this one may not be as profitable as the other. So maybe we can drop the one that's not profitable right now. Or, maybe you're wanting to determine if you can afford a new building. Well, if you don't know what your cash is looking like, or you don't know how heavily leveraged you are already, you can't really make that decision. So yeah, you got to have clean books.
Mm-hmm. Well, talk to me about the people that are trying to do it themselves. And obviously there's software out there that can help them, such as QuickBooks. Tell me what QuickBooks is and what it does.
Yeah, QuickBooks. I think QuickBooks is still number one. I know Xero is coming pretty close, but QuickBooks for a while has been the number one small business accounting program for a while now. And there's, of course, the desktop version, and then there's the online version. And the online version is obviously newer to the Intuit community. But Intuit does a great job of making their programs very user-friendly. They make them intuitive to where someone who's not an accountant can at least jump in, at least set it up maybe. But the problem is that at some point, there's going to be a need to have an accountant or a bookkeeper get into the books. So many business owners that I've spoken with, they're not familiar with revenue recognition. They don't know what accrual accounting is. If I ask, are you on a cash basis or an accrual basis? Some of them have no idea. So these are very, very, very important accounting concepts that affect the way that you'll use QuickBooks. If you're not sure about job costing, if you're not sure how to read a financial report, if you don't know about loan amortization, then being a QuickBooks guru really won't do you a lot of good. You have to have that accounting knowledge paired with the QuickBooks Online acumen as well.
Very good. So what kind of things should a business owner be tracking in QuickBooks? Yeah.
Well, I always say it all starts with cash. So at a bare minimum, any cash coming in, any cash going out, that needs to be recorded in the books. Now, in terms of categorization, that of course will vary by by industry and by company. So we can get into categorization. I like to definitely get business owners familiar with how their chart of accounts should be listed. But you want to make sure that if you have any loans, the loans need to be in the books. If you've made any purchases outside of your business bank account, if you're just starting your business, you may be funding operations out of your own pocket. Well, you need to make sure that those transactions are in the books, even though the bank from which they were purchased, maybe the bank isn't connected to QuickBooks Online. So I don't want to get too technical there, but there are lots of things that need to be in the books that many businesses aren't quite capturing.
And what do you see the biggest mistake that people make if they're trying to use QuickBooks themselves? What do you see that they often miss out on?
Yeah, well, definitely the categorization. If you go to Office Depot and purchase, some paper, obviously that's an easy one. I'm going to toss that to office supplies, no big deal. But when we start getting into loans, investments, fixed assets, loans that the company has given out, then there tends to be some unfamiliarity there. So I can't stress enough. That's why it's very important. It's crucial to make sure that you have an accountant or a bookkeeper that's in the books handling those items that you're not quite familiar with. So I would say the miscategorization, that's a big one.
Mm-hmm. Now, how long or how much time does it take in a regular month for somebody to keep up with all this stuff?
That's a very good question. I would say that varies. That varies by individuals. So myself, I'm a certified QuickBooks ProAdvisor. I've been certified for some years now. So I'm very comfortable in QuickBooks. I know the shortcuts. I know how to get the information in there accurately and quickly. So depending on the books, depending on the situation, depending on the size of the company, in a month's time, it could be a few hours a month. Other times it could be a situation where you just need an hourly bookkeeper, not hourly necessarily, but you need a bookkeeper that's in the books on a weekly basis, not just kind of going in and cleaning things up here or there. I've learned that many business owners who have, taken their best shot at QuickBooks and tried to go in and do the bookkeeping, and they, I encourage their effort, but sometimes if you're not that adept in the program, you can kind of cause more harm than good. And so when it comes to doing cleanups, from a business owner that made some attempts, but it kind of struggled a bit, when it comes to cleanups, those take a good amount of time to do. So, you wouldn't be surprised if we give a client a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks to get the books cleaned up, not to mention because we have other clients. Right. But it does take time, yeah.
What kind of misconceptions, Joy, are there out there about having a bookkeeper for their business?
Yeah, well, the main one is that bookkeeping is just data entry. So I've heard that time and time again, and that could not be further from the truth. Now, I will say this. There are freelancers who do only data entry. So they'll take your information and put it in QuickBooks, and they'll give it back and say, I'm done. But if you hire an actual bookkeeper, a professional bookkeeping service or individual, then they're gonna talk about, like I mentioned, those accounting terms that I mentioned. They're going to be able to evaluate the books and say, hey, you've understated revenue for the past couple of years. We need to make sure that we reclass these transactions. Or they're going to say, hey, I've looked at the books and I think that you would benefit from class tracking. That's another very, very useful tool in QuickBooks. And it boils down to that accounting acumen. You really want to have an accountant or a bookkeeper. And I use the terms interchangeably, but myself, I'm degreed, so I consider myself an accountant. But you want to have an individual that's a professional and that knows accounting on your side.
Now, at what point does a business owner look at their books, and they might be using QuickBooks themselves? At what point do they get to that they say, I've got to hire somebody professional to do this for me?
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, it's usually in a desperate situation where the loan officer needs those financials, or it's time to file taxes, or, God forbid someone has an audit. Those are the times that I usually get those desperate, hey, can you clean up my books in 2 days? Also, I've run into situations where maybe a business owner has just decided that he wants to control his books. He wants to go ahead and pay attention to what's going on. And so he'll sit down and he'll do his first bank reconciliation, and it'll be a struggle, and that's where I get the call. What's going on with this bank rec? Can you teach me how to do it? And I typically say, look, why don't you let me do it? You can go ahead and, focus on the business and let me focus on the financials. And I can get those bank recs cleaned up, no problem.
Right. And I think that's an extremely important point. People that run and work businesses are good at doing what they do in their business, but they're not bookkeepers or experts like yourself, qualified accountants. So it just makes sense to, have somebody qualified to do the books for them.
Yeah, it relieves a lot of stress, I've noticed. I've gotten, tons of thank yous and, oh gosh, I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders. The last thing I want to do is deal with the worst subject in college that I had. It gives us pleasure to take that off of their shoulders because it's what we do. We literally enjoy doing it. So yeah, it's definitely our pleasure to help out in that area.
Now, talk to me about, sending out the 1099s. Is that a major stress point for many companies?
In my experience, I'll say that it is not a stress point, but Neil, it's only because they don't know about 1099s. So companies will know that they have, W-9 contractors working for them. They know that they hired these individuals, but they're not aware of the 1099 requirement of the IRS to make sure that, hey, you report the income, that they've received from your business. A lot of business owners don't know that it doesn't just apply to the guy that, comes into the office and does some work, but it may even apply to the guy that you hired to paint the building. It may apply to the individual, who does courier work for you. It depends on a few factors. If they're a corporation, in that instance, you wouldn't necessarily 1099 them. But a lot of business owners just don't know about 1099 procedures. And that's what we are skilled at, and we are always happy to help in that area.
So, Joy, what do you say is the main reason that businesses don't hire a professional to do their job, to do the books for them?
I would say that the price is a hindrance at times. I don't know if the value of bookkeeping is apparent to most. We're definitely great at explaining, why it's important to have a bookkeeper. But, like I said, a lot of business owners, they may think that they can do the books themselves, save a few dollars. But at the end of the day, if you're spending hours trying to figure out the books, then now you're losing money, right? You might as well go ahead and hire a professional. And then also, many business owners, they're looking at the clock. If they hire a bookkeeper and if that bookkeeper is at an hourly rate, then they're thinking, okay, how long is it going to take you to finish this? It shouldn't take you more than a couple hours, right? All you have to do is X, Y, Z. And, we definitely discourage that because you shouldn't really focus on the time. Now, if there's a deadline in terms of a couple of days or something that you need something done, absolutely. But to take the focus off of the time and onto the quality, we actually do not use an hourly rate pricing model. We actually use a fixed rate value pricing model. So what we do is we evaluate your books. We do a very, very thorough review and consultation, and we'll let you know the areas that may need cleanup. And then in addition, we'll let you know what areas we can tackle for you going forward. Go ahead and hire us as your monthly bookkeeping service provider. We'll take all of this off of your plate for you. And based on that analysis, we'll provide a quote. And it's a flat rate quote. There aren't any surprises. And we just let you know this is the cost and this is the value. And that word value is so important because it's not a matter of, like I said, it didn't take you more than a few hours. And I'm thinking your hourly rate should be this. So therefore, this is how much I think it should cost. No, we're looking at not just the amount of time, but we're looking at the amount of years of expertise that we have under our belt. We're looking at the conferences and the webinars that we attend regularly so that we can hone our craft and so that we can provide the best possible service for your company. You're looking at the accounting knowledge, right? We have a wealth of knowledge to share. We can answer questions that maybe you didn't know would be a good question. We're pointing out areas in your bookkeeping that need fixing. So the value is very much, it's higher sometimes. It's higher sometimes than some business owners are aware of. But when we explain the value that we provide, you'll understand 100% that it's worth the cost. We've had several satisfied customers that say, yep, we made the right decision. We'll gladly pay you to take this off of our plate.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of business owners really are looking for clarity, and they're looking for certainty in their numbers and their books, and just being able to educate on the value of what you can do for them is extremely important. But as far as the price goes, are you able to look at their books and find out just where they're leaking money? That you can say, well, hey, I can save you so much money here if you just have your books done properly.
Absolutely, yes. In addition to getting your time back, yes, we can even find cost savings for you in the books. So it kind of evens out at the end of the day.
So, Joy, give me an example of a kind of company that you work with, one that might pop to mind that came to you and they were in a mess. How were you able to help them, and what was the outcome for them?
Sure. We worked with a property management company, and it was actually a one-man show. So he's managing residential real estate for several apartment communities. And he was becoming a bit overwhelmed, and to add insult to injury, he had just set up his accounting program after 4 years of being in operation. So his concern was that if he gets audited, he's in trouble. He was not being red flagged for being audited, but he was just that concerned about the state of his bookkeeping that he was concerned at that being a possibility. So another thing was his books were completely on paper, on notebook paper. So he was very old school, great guy, but he was very old school. And so basically, I was tasked with putting together his entire system of accounting, putting it in the accounting program. And the information that I was given was a little inconsistent. There were some hiccups here and there. So I had to use my accounting knowledge. I had to use my detective skills to piece together the information the absolute best way that I could. And when I tell you, it was a beautiful finished product, 4 years of data, 4 bank accounts, and it was, the numbers made sense at the end of the day. So he was very grateful. And again, it was 100% my pleasure. This is what I live for. I love helping business owners to get clarity in their books.
Well, that's got to be hard, moving from paper to the computer. I remember vividly my dad doing all the books on paper. But do you see a lot of business owners that have been in business for many years that are having to make that transition? Yeah.
Oh, you said, do I see it?
Yes.
No, not really. He was the one-off. He was the anomaly.
Yeah.
Most business owners that I come across, they either have QuickBooks Online and they just haven't touched it, or they've made an attempt and they're kind of struggling with it, or they just don't have an accounting program at all. And believe it or not, it seems that maybe not having an accounting program at all may kind of be easier than working with paper. I can't explain why, but there's something about paper that makes a virtual bookkeeper just, makes us crazy. But we can handle it though.
Well, it's great to have a system and know that system works. Now, Joy, if somebody is looking for a bookkeeper in and around Atlanta or anywhere, in the country, what are the questions they should be asking?
Excellent question. The first question I would ask is, do you only provide data entry service? Because again, you want to hire someone who is a qualified accountant or bookkeeper, not just someone who knows how to key in data, right? You can do that yourself. So definitely ask them what services they provide outside of just data entry. Also, make sure that you're familiar with, whether or not they do taxes. At Harmony Accounting and Bookkeeping, we actually don't do taxes, right? We're great at preparing the books for taxes, but that's not an area that we handle at this time. So, it's very important to not only know what your bookkeeper can provide, but also what they do not provide, right? You don't want to waste a conversation if you're looking for someone that can handle, the whole package there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're two separate things. Is the bookkeeping, the accounting, and then there's the taxes as well. I know there's many firms that do it all together, but there's others that specialize in one area that it seems that you do, and you do that not only in the Atlanta area, but all of the United States.
Absolutely, yeah. And, it's also important to make sure that you're asking if the bookkeeper has worked in that industry before. There's a huge difference between handling the bookkeeping for a marketing company and a construction company. So, and not all bookkeepers are the same, So that's another important one. Ask them what size companies have they worked with before. Obviously, there's a difference between the mom and pop shop and the, $4 million, brick and mortar company that sells tennis shoes. So yeah, you want to make sure that you're familiar with the skill set and the experience that your bookkeeper has. And lastly, I think it's important also to find out if your bookkeeper, if it's a QuickBooks, if you're using QuickBooks, if your bookkeeper is certified in QuickBooks. So ProAdvisors, we have access to a wealth of information. There's training that we do. There's a test that we have to pass. So we have a bit more experience in most cases than someone that is not certified in QuickBooks. So that's another important question.
Okay. All right, Joy. Well, let me ask you this one last question before we get to all your contact information, and that is, thinking back on your years of experience and the kind of clients that you have had over the years, what lesson did you learn early on in your business career that still impacts how you do business today?
Oh, man. I'd have to say that the customer is key. The customer is very important. At the end of the day, the customers are the reasons that we're still in business at the end of the day. So, excellent communication, staying on top of following up with customers, trying to anticipate their needs before they even have to express them. It's very, very important. We value each and every customer that we've ever done business with. And we appreciate them, and we look forward to sharing our love for accounting with anyone that needs it, who has QuickBooks Online, and if they're a corporation or an LLC.
I love that you're sharing your passion, but ultimately it is a relationship. You're in relationship with your clients, and you're there to help and serve them, which I love. That's excellent. Now, if people are looking out to find out more information about you, Joy, and Harmony Accounting and Bookkeeping Services, what is the best way for them to do that?
Sure. You can check out our website at www.harmonyatl.com. That's ATL as in Atlanta. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on there. My name is actually Joy Bridges, MBA, on LinkedIn. And you can also follow us on Facebook. We're out there. And also, if you're interested in scheduling an appointment for a consultation, you can do so via Calendly, and that's www.calendly.com. ENDLY.com/HarmonyATL/joy.
Excellent. I love Calendly. It's an international business based here in Atlanta. I use them as well for scheduling. They're really good. All right, Joy. Well, hey, I love the information that you gave today. Lots of very important information for keeping the books organized and setting your business straight. Knowing your numbers is extremely important, especially for the day-to-day running. But going for loans or even thinking about selling your business, you definitely have all these things in place. So thank you very much for all your advice today, and thanks for being my guest on Expert Profiles Atlanta.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed this.
And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
Thank you for listening to Expert Profiles Atlanta with Neil Howe. To learn more about the resources in the show or to listen to past episodes, visit expertprofilesatlanta.com.